Hey BookTube, Chelsea the Reading Outlaw here to do a review of His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. His Dark Materials is the name of the trilogy that involves the Golden Compass, the Subtle Knife, and the Amber Spyglass, 1, 2, and 3. This is my big total bind up that came out after the movie was released. Unfortunately, I saw the movie before I read the first book, which is now something I will probably always regret just a little because the movie is awful, and you should definitely read the book if you haven't yet. I read this book through the first couple of weeks of December as part of the His Dark Materials read along. I will post the link to the video for that down below. But Jen and Holly were leading that, and I had never actually read all three of the books at any point in time. I read the first one and then kind of stopped. But yeah, I'm really, really glad that I read them. They made a really, really good winter reading series. It was a really good time of year, I felt, to read my way through them for the first time. I will say this is definitely one of those series where the first book starts off really, really strong, and then things kind of slow down a bit. There were some bits through the second and even the third book that I felt kind of dragged, and I don't know if that's because I was an adult and reading them as they and reading that like they're young adult books, and so I don't know if the age difference was what made it a thing or if it's just that I was kind of losing interest through parts of them. But I definitely would say that on the whole this series was absolutely amazing, and of course the ending absolutely makes the entire series. I got to the ending and I won't say what happens, but I was bawling like a small child, and I think that if I had actually been a child when I read it for the first time, it would have devastated me and definitely would have pushed its way into the top 10. I think the thing that sticks out for me when it comes to reading this book as an adult is the heavier handling of the themes of kind of religion and morality and having a soul and sexuality and the way all of these things kind of interplay in a way that actually really surprised me, considering that it kind of starts out as a middle grade book and then ventures into young adult territory. Man, can't speak today. Kind of like Harry Potter does. The younger books or the first books are definitely more appropriate for a younger audience and then kind of grow with their audience as the number of books increases. This kind of does the same. But even with that kind of taken into account, I was really surprised at how heavy and how kind of dark some of the themes are. For those of you who don't know, and I don't think it's a spoiler to say this, the kind of overarching theme of all three books kind of pits science against religion and kind of has a lot to say about the purpose of religion and especially the church and the Catholic Church in our society. And basically what the book is kind of getting at on the whole is if you are so busy worried about what's going to be happening in your next lifetime, you're not going to be able to do the good works you need to do in this lifetime, and you're not going to be able to live up to the potential you need to live up to and cause some of the change that you have the potential to cause if you're consistently worried about the next world. There are also quite a few like kind of underrunning themes of corruption in the church and kind of both like sexual and financial that kind of run throughout. There's also this question of what happens to believers after they leave the church. Several of our characters, including Dr. Mary Malone and Mrs. Coulter, both have kind of places within the church and then choose other routes or kind of choose other destinies outside of that. And so it definitely begs the question of where a person's place is within the faith and then outside of the faith, and if those two can ever be reconciled. Like I said, I think the third book definitely made it for me. The second book was very, very interesting, and it's where we meet my favorite character, who is Will. Will was my favorite character throughout all three of the books. Although I really, really like Lyra, I think sometimes some of her impetuousness and her rashness kind of got on my nerves a little bit. I understand that that's kind of her character and her thing, and especially because she's very very good at lying. She says several times that lying is one of the few things that she can do really well. And so I think, but I think that Will's struggles and the fact that Will comes from our world and his darkness, his demons that he's dealing with seem much more dark than some of Lyra's do, but I definitely think that on the whole, this series is worth reading. If you know younger readers, definitely try to get it into their hands earlier, but even as an adult, there were definitely still things to pick out of this series that I really enjoyed. There are definitely some pretty strong undertones of like sexual maturity, sexual consent, rape, those kinds of things. None of those things actually occur, but there are definitely some kind of thematic undertones of all of those things when it comes to the children and their demons. So if that's something that you feel interested in exploring, there's definitely a lot there. This kind of tie between a demon and a person's sexuality and their sexual maturity, the social taboos against ever touching another person's demon unless you're specifically invited to. Kind of some of these things I think add a layer of analysis and depth to the book that I think makes it really, really interesting for adult readers that younger readers may have missed out on. So yeah, on the whole, I gave the first book 5 stars, the second book 4 stars, and the third book 4.5 stars. So it was like a 4.5, 4 3/4 star read for me overall. Definitely give it a go. If you have the chance to listen to it on audio, that's what I would recommend. I listened to mine on audio along with reading along in my trade paperback, and the audiobook has these like full audio cast productions. So Philip Pullman narrates the like interstitial bits of narration, and then different voice actors actually do the characters. And I've never found a full cast production that I enjoyed quite as much as I enjoyed this one. My library had all 3. I've talked to several other people who have gotten their copies from their library as well, so it's definitely something worth checking out. That is my review of His Dark Materials. That is probably the last review I will do for you guys this year. I have some more lined up for early in January, but I think as far as the December reviews, that about wraps it up, guys. Thank you so much for watching all of this year. As always, if you're new, you can subscribe down below, like, comment, let me know your thoughts, especially if you read His Dark Materials as a child or if you're reading it for the first time as an adult like I did. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. I will see you guys around the internet, and I hope you guys all have a very happy new year. Bye.